For this week's full scene setup, I have something really cool planned. I know I say that every single time, but I just really like October, and I really like Halloween and all things spooky, scary, and horror. So I'm excited about doing horror-themed scenes all this month. So today, I'm going to do something that's inspired by the Walking Dead comic books. Not necessarily the TV show, but specifically the comics. So we're going to do kind of an old school, like black and white horror comic look. So if you're unfamiliar with that look, you can find some cool stills just by doing a Google image search for the Walking Dead comic book. And so you might want to check one of those out beforehand just to get an idea of the kind of vibe that we're going for. So we're going to do kind of an urban apocalyptic scene. So I've got a really cool abandoned alleyway scene that I'm going to set up. So we're going to go ahead and pull that in first. And I really like this scene. It has a couple of, tilted camera angles, which I may or may not use. So I'm going to go ahead and create my own camera to use for this one. It's got a few cameras, but again, I'm going to have complete control, so I'm going to go ahead and use my own. So let's move that back a little bit. All right, and as I said, we are doing kind of a Walking Dead comic book kind of theme. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and apply my comic book shaders. So I'm going to use Control A, or actually, I'll just right-click and select all. Sometimes the Control A is a little bit wonky. So I'm going to right-click and select all, and that should select everything in the scene. And then I'm going to go to Surfaces and make sure that everything is selected there. Remember, when you're applying shaders, that you do have to select everything in the Surfaces tab, or the shaders won't work. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to my Toon shaders. Alright, and I am already there. And so for this one, we're going to go for more of a cel-shaded look, kind of like we did with the vampire scene last week, but I may try some more extreme edges. So I'm going to start with basic shader F, and that's also going to give us some really dramatic shadows, I think. There we go. So let's go to our NVIDIA Iray view, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, pretty good so far. So really dramatic shadows. They might be just a little bit too dramatic, but we can tweak that in a moment. I'm also going to add a couple of lights that'll help out with that. And also, if you've seen the Walking Dead comics, you know that they're done in black and white. So that's something else we're going to do. So I'm going to try to create a lot of really deep black shadows and a lot of high contrast stuff that I think will look really good in black and white. Alright, let's go ahead and go back to the texture shaded style. And I'm going to go ahead and drop in my model that we're going to use. I think I'm just going to make this a one model scene. And I've got a great one picked out. We're going to use Hagred HD, which is kind of like a swamp witch kind of model. And we're going to repurpose that and use it as a zombie character. Alright, so one thing that's worth mentioning is if you have filter by context, if you ever notice under smart content that all of your stuff appears to be gone, it's probably because you have something selected in the scene. Like right now I've got everything selected. So I'm going to right click and clear selection, and there we go, now everything appears over here. So let me go find my figure. Alright, and here is my Hagrid HD character, so I'm going to double click to load her in. Alright, and there she is. Now I'm going to go ahead and do her clothing and her hair. I'm not going to apply materials because she doesn't have any material options. She comes with her default material already added, so we don't have to worry about that. So instead I'm going to go up to hair. And I had to work really hard to find a hair that I liked with this character. So I'm just going to go with a really short hair on this one. I'm going to use Leeling hair. Let's go ahead and add that in. There we go. I'm going to right click and select the Leeling hair and see if I have any materials that I can apply. Let's go to Iray. There we go. And do we have like a white or a gray hair? Yeah, let's try that one. There we go. I've got to look pretty good. And I also struggled a lot with the clothings when I was doing the test render on this one earlier. So let me see if I can remember what I did. I had one that was kind of like a witch doctor outfit that looked pretty good. It doesn't look great in color, but when I did the black and white, it worked really well. There we go, this is it. Mama Legba is what this one is. And this one comes with a bundle that has a great set of stuff for that character, and I will link to that in the description below. So be sure to check that out. I'll link to all of the relevant products that I use, so be sure to check those out. So this does look a little bit goofy on our zombie, so I'm going to change a couple of things. Let's go ahead and get rid of the hat first. Let's go ahead and leave the jacket and the skirt. The skirt especially, I think, looks really good. I think this one will work well. Like I said, it doesn't look great in color, but in black and white, it looks a whole lot better, I think. All right, the next thing we're going to do is get our zombie posed, and we're going to kind of repurpose just like an old lady walking animation whenever we, or walking pose rather, and when we apply it to the zombie, it looks a lot more menacing than I think it originally meant to. So I'm going to go to poses, sort by function, and we're going to do walking. There we go. And yeah, like this one, kind of like the, actually this is a sneaking pose, not an old woman walking pose. But I think that's the one I used earlier. Let me see what else I have. No, here it is. Yeah, these are the ones. Okay, let's try that one. And it looks kind of like a creeping zombie. I think that will look really good. There we go. Yes, that's the one that I used earlier. All right, let me go ahead and get my camera placed roughly where I want it. And we're going to have her looking at the camera like she's stalking us, going right for us. So I'm going to twist the head a little bit. There we go. I think that's just about perfect. All right, this seems coming together really quickly. All right, the next thing we're going to do is to apply our shaders to our character, our toon shaders. So let's select her. Let's go to Surfaces, Hagred HD, and we're just going to select Skin, Lips, and Nails first. And then we're going to select our toon shader. And yeah, we're going to use Shader Basic F again. Now let's go to NVIDIA iRay and check that out so far. There we go. Already that's looking really good. Yeah, that is exactly the kind of feel I'm going for. All right, let's go ahead and do the rest of our textures then. I'm going to do the hair next. Very good. And then I'm going to do the clothing by double-clicking our character. And I should pull up everything that's attached to her. Actually, that's not wanting to work. I'll do apply it individually. Sometimes if you try to select multiple things, the shaders don't want to apply correctly, and you have to apply them individually. Alright, so I've got to right-click and select each thing in the scene. And then select it in Surfaces. Alright, and then we'll apply our shader. There we go. That works. And then we'll do the skirt. I'm just going to rush through these because it's basically the same steps. There we go, that's what I was looking for. And I was going to put a light on this, on our character, but I think that looks great the way it is. If I were doing this in a color scene, I might create a spotlight shining down with maybe like a yellowish glow to give that street lamp effect, or maybe even a bluish glow. I think the yellow might look a little bit better. But I kind of like this one the way it is, though. Alright, so we'll leave it there for now, and we'll see how it looks in black and white. Alright, so to get the black and white effect, we're going to use our tone mapping controls. And if you need a quick rundown on the tone mapping controls and what they do, I did a video on that on, I think it went out on Monday, so I'll link to that above. Be sure to check that one out. But the main one that we're going to use is the saturation. So just go to the Render Settings tab, go to Tone Mapping, and this has all of our tone mapping controls. And we're going to bump the saturation down to 0. So this is basically just the color saturation. So if you put it at 0, it's going to completely desaturate the scene. Basically, it just removes all of the color. There we go. And then we're going to move around our Crush Blacks and Burn Highlights sliders a little bit just to give it more contrast. There we go. So if I move Crush Blacks all the way to the top, then it makes our blacks a little bit more pronounced and makes these shadows and the shading very dramatic. And a similar thing with Burn Highlights. This is basically going to enhance our whites as we move the slider. Either that or it's going to de-enhance the whites. But again, I wanted a really nice high contrast. So we're going to move that all the way up. Alright, and that is looking pretty good already. I may try that with a light just to see what it looks like, but honestly, I really like the way that's looking so far. Let's go ahead and put a spotlight on that just to see what it looks like. So again, I'm going to rush through this part really quickly. There we go. So as I'm bumping the lumens up on that, you can kind of see the illumination starting to take effect. I'm going to go ahead and make that spread angle a little bit wider so we get a little bit more light spread. There we go. I like that better. And I'm going to keep on bumping up the lumens on this. Sometimes you have to bump up the lumens quite a bit in order to get the effect you desire. There we go. And I'm going to try moving that spotlight a little bit closer as well. There we go, that's a little bit better. I'm just going to start. No. Alright, let's keep bumping up the lumens. There we go. I'm also going to go ahead and add an HDRI dome just to get a little bit more ambient light in the scene. So let's go to... There we go. We'll go to render settings. And again, I'm going to use one of my go-to night scenes, Darkest Night. I'm going to make this one a little bit brighter than I normally would, because we're not actually going to see the night sky. We're just going to use that for a little bit of extra ambient light. There we go. And it looks like I added color back into my scene. That's interesting. I probably should have added that first, but let's see if that changed. Let me see. Yeah, I bumped my saturation back up to 1, so let's go ahead and put that back at 0. There we go, that's good. So what I wanted was just a little bit more of that background in the trash cans in view there. And again, we've still got a really nice high contrast, very bright whites and very dark blacks on that. I'm still going to enhance that a little bit. There we go, it might be a little bit too much. I'm going to bring my burn highlights down a touch. Yeah, but that's kind of the effect that I'm going for. Alright, I'm going to tweak my light just a little bit more by bringing my lumens down a little. Oh, a little bit too far. There we go. So as you can see, a lot of this is just trial and error, just trying different things and finding out what works and what doesn't. Just kind of learning as you go along, making little tweaks until you get the exact feel that you're going for. There we go. That looks nice, I think. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and create another couple of cameras just to get some different angles on this. I may or may not use those renders, but we'll go ahead and see what we can do. I'm being very sloppy with the naming of my cameras right now. I probably should name them something better, but I'm not that concerned with it right now. It's just a really relatively quick and pretty simple scene. There we go, a little bit far back and wide. Yeah, I think I like that one okay. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and save these and hit the render button, and then we'll check out our finished product in a few minutes. And here we are with our final renders. I did end up making a couple of minor tweaks after I shut my recording off. The main thing that I did is I added an expression to our figure. This is just like a snarling expression that I happen to have. Just to give her a little bit more menacing, kind of a growl expression on her face. But this is the first camera, the close-up camera, dead on, which is definitely the one that I like the best. This is the one that I kind of did the lighting for. The other two, I really just added cameras as an afterthought. Probably could have done the lighting a little better. So this is 2 from the right side, our zombie's left side. And I also like this one quite a bit. I would have liked to have the background lit a little bit more, but I kind of like this one okay. Third one, I'm not too fond of. I think our zombie's a little bit too well lit, but the background, not so much. But I definitely do like those first two. That one, the first one, is definitely my favorite one. I also tweaked the tone mapping a little bit. I messed with the camera exposure, primarily the shutter speed and the ISO. And once I did that, the whites started to look a little bit washed out, and so I bumped the burn highlights slider way down. If you check in the description below, I'll put the exact values that I used for those if you're curious. But all in all, I am really happy with the way this one turned out, especially these first two. I really like those a lot. I love the dramatic shadows, the contrast between the black and the white. Gives it that really cool black and white comic book feel. So if you got something out of this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Also check the description below for links to the products that I used, as well as a couple of ways that you can support me either for free or monetarily. And that will do us for this one. I'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.